last minute stream, but I figured why not? I kind of want to get back into the story. So, we're going to read another few chapters of book 2. Wes. One sec. Imagine reading. What's up? What's up? What's up? Why is it unstable on Twitch? Story of my life. Ooh, you haven't read these chapters yet. Excellent. Love that. What's up, AC? How are you? How y'all doing? Alright, that's good. Put that right there. It's been weird. Tale of Two Cities. I keep comparing it, or in my mind, I keep comparing it to The Scarlet Pimpernel, the beginning. And I'm trying to think of, I think it's because he's a better author and a better storyteller. It feels like a slow intro, but it feels so much better than The Scarlet Pimpernel, the introduction. I'm wondering why I am thinking that. If that is just because I automatically assume that Dickens is a better writer, but the writing is clearly better in the beginning. And The Scarlet Pimpernel felt slow to me. The writing felt really disjointed and kind of a little helter-skelter in the beginning. But Dickens feels so tight. And it's like still a little hard to understand at times. But the quality is just there. It's just right there. It's good. So all I have to say, I'm thoroughly enjoying so far. Modify. Weird. Yeah, Miko, I don't know why. I'm trying to figure that out. Yeah, totally. I think the writing is just much more entertaining because he is just kind of experimenting with things. Video. One second. I gotta figure out a bit rate issue. Every time we start a Tale of Two Cities. Also, I have another dog in my apartment. I'm dog sitting. He's a very good dog. Actually, really like him. He's a good dog. Yeah, when nothing was happening, even the prose wasn't augmenting it. That's a great point. Okay, hold on one second. Bit rate. No, not nitrate. Streaming versus Twitch. I don't know why. Twitch. It's high. Dang, that's crazy. Okay, one second. I'm going to try to fix something. File. Settings. Output. Let's just go 6,000. Nemo or Neo, don't. I almost said Nemo because I was reading Nemo right there. This dog's name is Neo. Don't chew that right here. It's gonna be loud. So this is for, there are 4 pillars of a good book: plot, character, setting, and prose. At least one of them has to be working at all times for the book to be enjoyable. Yeah, Miko, I'm on YouTube too. I'm mainly on YouTube. I'm trying to stream on Twitch too, to do it simultaneously, but right now it is not working. I'm gonna stop and then start. Modify this. The pros for this book are significantly better. I definitely agree with that than Baroness Orczy. They're like a little bit more effortless. Sorry everyone, trying to figure some issues out. So someone on the last stream gave a time code for when I actually stopped talking about when I stopped talking about like trying to figure out my tech issues. And someone commented under that, "Thank you. Boring." I was like, wow, you can just deal with a few seconds. It was a few minutes, but audio settings, video settings, share from Twitch, or use a streaming encoder. Yeah. Okay, let's try this. I don't think it's gonna work. Keep saying unstable. Can't get the book until tomorrow since right after work you have a hockey game. Ooh, that's kind of fun. Are you playing or watching? You have a hockey game to work? That's kind of cool. All right, I might abandon Twitch for this one because, oh, it's working. Never mind. I'm not abandoning that. Hey, we're in Twitch and we're in YouTube. All right, we're good. But okay, so writing. There's a few different avenues of writing. Nemo, I like your point on that, but at the same time, I think that the prose. Actually, no, I like that you just wrote the prose because the writing is concerned with all of them. Like, some people know how to write good plot. Some people know how to write good characters. But some people who write good characters don't know how to write good setting. Some people who write good prose don't know how to write good plot. Like the Pulitzer Prize winners, like the National Book Award winners, are all people who are great at prose, at characters, sometimes at setting, not necessarily at setting. But a lot of them are the worst plot writers imaginable. They don't know what a plot is, hit them in the head. But I mean, we love those books because actually, do we love those books? Let's be honest. Yeah, at least one of them definitely has to be working. But it is interesting because I think the prose is something that like touches all the rest of them. And it's interesting too because the Scarlet Pimpernel had elements of the story that were kind of fun. Like in the beginning, I don't think it was working that much in the beginning for me. Maybe the setting was interesting, and then all of a sudden it swapped over. Ooh, you handle statistics crew. I love that. Handle assists. That's so fun. Okay, well, is it like a semi-pro, pro hockey game? Are you like a pro hockey assist person? Interesting that you haven't read any Pulitzer winners. That's actually really interesting. That's all I used to read for a while. Some of them are great. Some of them are the best, some of the most beautifully written books ever. But I'm kind of over some of them because none of them have any plot attached to them. Minor Leagues, that's so cool. That is so fun. Good luck. Good luck to the team. All right, we're gonna get started in 4 minutes. We'll start at 11. But yeah, I just keep comparing the two because they're like both French Revolution. One starts okay, the other one actually the Scarlet Pimpernel. Again, I just don't think the start was all that great. Like, you can start a novel slow, that's fine. Yeah, some books really don't have plots. And sometimes I'm okay with that. Sometimes I really like just like a character-driven novel. Like, again, one of my favorite authors of all time, Marilyn Robinson, does not write plots in her novel. She just writes characters. And kind of interesting settings, but not, because it's in Iowa. So can anything be interesting if it's in Iowa? Never been to Iowa. Sorry if you're from Iowa. I feel like no one knows anything about Iowa. But she writes great sentences. She knows how to write a sentence. Wow, she knows how to write a sentence. She writes everything long form too, which is crazy. Interesting. What was that book? Oh, you're from Nebraska. Almost Iowa. Nebraska feels cooler, though, to me than Iowa. I don't know why. Also, I found a new channel on YouTube that I just watched one of the videos so far. Neo, you're just really going at it there, huh? Called Gavin the Medievalist. It's kind of a fun channel. It's just like a medieval PhD scholar who just talks about medieval stuff. That's a good description, right? My Antonia is the Nebraska book. I totally forgot that. I read My Antonia in grad school. You haven't read To Kill a Mockingbird? Dang, you gotta read To Kill a Mockingbird. To Kill a Mockingbird is one of those rare books that covers that hits all the points. You'd like it. Good plot. Well, maybe you'd like it. I don't know if you'd like it. Good plot. Setting. What is it? Alabama? Is it Alabama? Maycomb, Alabama, I think. Interesting setting. Great characters. Great writing. Great writing. It's one of those. It's the first book that I read that I was like, wow, reading can be fun. Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine by. Wait, is the whole book title Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine? Or are you saying the book is Eleanor Oliphant and it is completely fine? By Gail Honeyman. I like a good book. All right, everyone, we're gonna get started. I'm trying to do something. It is a concerted effort to do this, but I realize that I speak with the top of I speak with my throat, which everyone does. I'm trying to speak with my diaphragm a little bit more to alleviate my voice, because after these live reads, my voice has been kind of killing me. At the end of them, I'm barely hanging on. So I'm trying to use my lower register and to speak a bit more with my diaphragm, but it's hard. It's like I need to do some exercises or something like that. I don't know what I'm doing. All right, everyone, we're gonna get started. This is the second book. Give me 1 second. I gotta schedule something else. I know I need some honey tea. I know, but still, that just kind of soothes it. I want it like a long-term solution. Reading aloud wrecks your voice, different than speaking. Yeah, I kind of feel that too. Like, I could probably speak for a while, but I don't know, for some reason reading just kind of messes it up. The trick is to think of the breath coming like in front of your face. What do you mean? Person with CPTSD. What is CPTSD? Carpal tunnels, pet, thinking, sad dreams. I don't know. Oh, complex PTSD. Definitely not what I said. Interesting. That kind of sounds like a good one. Interesting that you give up after 50 pages. Cinnamon, do you like Tale of Two Cities so far? Like, are you into the story? I go through phases of, like, sometimes I will quit a book after, like, a paragraph if it doesn't interest me. But at the moment, I'm more like, let me try to hang on, because some books are worth it. There was a book that Zadie Smith wrote called White Teeth. I think it won a Pulitzer. I think she's won a Pulitzer. Maybe that one. I don't know if that one did, actually. It won like a National Book Award, maybe. And I hated the whole book. And then the last like 20 pages made it worth it, because it was like interesting. You're like, oh wow, I did not see that coming. All right, I think we're good now. Let me take a little sip of water. Speaking with breath, not vocal cords, is yeah, Mika, I'm kind of with you. Starting too many books at once. Right now I have too many books at once, and I'm about to start Dune. Like, actually physically reading Dune, which is going to be I'm excited, but Neo, you're being loud right there, buddy. He's got a little bone. He's breaking up a bone over here. All right, now we're going to officially start. Sorry, I've been delaying. Yeah, I can't do that. I also heard a thing, last thing I want to mention, because I want to see if you guys know if this is true or not. I also heard a thing that whispering is worse for your voice. It'll hurt your voice more than actually speaking. Is that true? Ooh, Nemo, love that. Excellent. I haven't even read the first one, so I'm kind of pumped. Like, if I start reading like this, it feels like it's less stress on my voice. We should do an ASMR reading. We should honestly do that. That'd be kind of great. But I'm sure shouting doesn't help your voice more than whispering. But apparently whispering kills your voice. That's breath. Yeah, that's true. The difference between lowering your voice and actually whispering. Yeah. All right, Nemo, enjoy. I'm not gonna do it on this channel. Dune is gonna be on the first time. I have too many channels. Dune's gonna be on my Fun Reads channel. I was gonna put that on the Game of Thrones channel and combine them, but Dune is gonna be on. It's just called First Time Readers, or First Time Reader. Let me look this up real quick. YouTube. Sorry, I keep saying we're gonna start, but I get distracted. Studio. Give me a sec. Switch account. This channel is my. I'm just doing Dungeon Crawler Carl and just like talking about my thoughts on it. But in the next like 2 months, as soon as I start Dune, thank you, Nemo. It will be that'll be like a bit more serious, I guess. I'll just start talking about that book. I'm excited, especially with the movie, because I think the movie's great. I don't know if I'm going to read it aloud. We'll see. I might read some of it aloud, but I'll just probably talk about chapters and themes and stuff like that, like I do for a lot of the other channels. First year of homeschooling, reading aloud killed me. Now you read easily 1 to 2 hours a day, no problem. Wow. Yeah, I need some vocal tutorials. I did read Project Hail Mary. Loved it. Good thing Nemo's gone now, because we could talk about Project Hail Mary and talk about how we love it. I thought it was a great book. I thought it was fun. Dune seems very timely with what's happening in the world. I hear there's a lot of interesting themes that go on in Dune, so I'm excited to read it. But that'll be on the First Time Readers channel, or First Time Reader, singular. I am the First Time Reader. All right, everyone, let's get started. Nemo, go eat dinner. you hear chomps, the second dog is over here just chewing on a bone while Wes is looking at him on the bed. Book the second, The Golden Thread, Chapter 1. 5 years later. Dang. All right. We're skipping ahead. Here we go. Tellson's Bank by Temple Bar was an old-fashioned place, even in the year 1780. It was very small, very dark, very ugly, very incommodious. It is, okay, so this is just something that people don't do this a lot in writing. And if you do this in writing, there has to be a purpose. He always includes 4 in lists. He always does 4 things in lists. He says it was very small, very dark, very ugly, very incommodious. He's been doing that in this entire novel. And I'm curious if that's because in the beginning of the novel, he writes the best of times, the worst of times. So it's doubles. And then now he wants to carry that on and do quads. Usually they do triples. In modern language, you always do triples. Not that you're supposed to. I actually think it's kind of fun if you don't do triples, because triples is like a boring way to write. But he always, maybe like more, maybe it is a bit more, I mean, both triples and quads. I don't know what the technical term for this is. Listings. It can both be poetic, but he always does. He's been doing 4s for a while, which is really interesting. I don't know why it's really interesting, but I think it is. It was an old-fashioned place, moreover, and the moral attribute that the partners in the house were proud of its smallness, proud of its darkness, proud of its ugliness, and proud of its incommodiousness. Oh, that's great. I love that. That's a great sentence. Like, contrasts it. They were even boastful of its eminence in those particulars, and were fired by an express conviction that, if it were less objectionable, it would be less respectable. This was no passive belief, but an active weapon, which they had flashed at more convenient places of business. Tellson's, they said, wanted no elbow room. Tellson's wanted no light. Tellson's wanted no embellishment. Noakes and Co. might, or Snooks Brothers might, but Tellson's, thank heaven. Any of these partners would have disinherited his son on the question of rebuilding Tellson's. In this respect, the house was much on par with the country, which did very often disinherit its sons for suggesting improvement in laws and customs that had long been highly objectionable, but were only the more respectable. Do you guys hear the chewing? I don't know if it's driving you guys crazy. It's not driving me crazy. Little dog chomps. He's just happy. He's happily chewing away. But if it's annoying you guys, let me know. Yeah, in art, the rule of 3s, sometimes it just seems more pleasing, but for this novel, the 4s kind of seem really pleasing to me. Thus it had come to pass that Tellson's was the triumphant perfection of inconvenience. After bursting open a door of idiotic obstinacy with a weak rattle in its throat, you fell into Tellson's down 2 steps, and came to your senses in a miserable little shop, with 2 little counters, where the oldest of men made your check shake as if the wind rustled it, while they examined the signature by the dingiest of windows, which were always under a shower bath of mud from Fleet Street, and which were made the dingier by their own iron bars proper and the heavy shadows of Temple Bar. If your business necessitated your seeing the house, you were put into a species of condemned hold at the back, where you meditated on a misspent life, until the house came with its hands in its pockets, and you could hardly blink at it in the dismal twilight. Your money came out of, or went into, wormy old wooden drawers, particles of which flew up your nose and down your throat when they were opened and shut. Your banknotes had a musty odor, as if they were fast decomposing into rags again. Your plate was stowed away among the neighboring cesspools, and evil communications corrupted by its good polish in a day or two. Your deeds got into extemporized strong rooms made of kitchens and sculleries, and fretted all the fat out of their parchments into the baking house air. Your lighter boxes of family papers went upstairs into a barmecide. What's a barmecide? Have you don't know a barmecide? Any takers on a barmecide? Don't know. Also, everyone liked the stream. I forgot to mention that. Like the stream, people. Barmecide room. Oh, it gives me a footnote, actually. Barmecide room is... refers to the disappearing banquet in the Arabian Nights story of the Barmecide family, a favorite illusion of Victorian novelists. Interesting. Why is it a favorite illusion? Weird. That always had a great dining table in it and never had dinner. And where, even in the year 1780, the first letters written to you by your old love or by your little children were but newly released from the horror of being ogled through the windows by the heads exposed on Temple Bar, with an insensate brutality and ferocity worth of Abyssinian or Ashanti. Lots of things I don't know. Recalls a grisly custom lapsed by 1780, which Mr. Lorry might have witnessed during the first years of his employment by Tellson's, both at the time of the novel's prominent black African kingdoms. Oh, cool. I didn't know Abyssinian. Yeah, I actually knew that was African. Yeah, not Tolkien. Dickens is giving a little pop culture references right now. That's great. I love that. But indeed, at that time, putting to death was a recipe much in vogue, with all trades and professions, and not least of which with Tellson's. Hey, Neo, what's up, buddy? Coming in for a pet? Death is nature's remedy for all things, and why not legislation's? Accordingly, the forager was put to death. The utter of a bad note was put to death. The unlawful opener of a letter was put to death. The purloiner of 40 shillings and sixpence was put to death. The holder of the horse at Tellson's door, who made off with it, was put to death. The coiner of a bad shilling was put to death. The sound of 3/4 of the note and the whole gamut of crime were put to death. Not that it did in the least good in the way of prevention. It might almost have been worth remarking that the fact was exactly the reverse. But it cleared off, as to this world, the trouble of each particular case, and left nothing else connected with it to be looked after. Thus, Tellson's, in its day, like greater places of business, its contemporaries, had taken so many lives that if the heads laid low before it had been ranged on the Temple Bar instead of being privately disposed of, they would probably have excluded what little light the ground floor had, in a rather significant manner. Okay, so this is what I was talking about in the video that I published this morning. This is the sentences that just hang and just make you so tense because he doesn't close up the sentences. He introduces a topic and then all of a sudden doesn't give you the purpose of the sentence until the end. He goes, thus, Tellson's, in its day. So you're going, okay, what is Tellson's like in its day? Like greater places of business, its contemporaries, had taken so many lives that if the heads laid low before it had been ranged on Temple Bar instead of being privately disposed of, they would probably have excluded what little light the ground floor had in a rather significant manner. Like, that is crazy. Also, I love that Tellson's is just out murdering people who do anything wrong. It's kind of crazy. Cramped in all kinds of dim cupboards and hutches at Tellson's, the oldest of men carried on the business gravely. When they took a young man into Tellson's London house, they hid him somewhere till he was old. They kept him in a dark place, like a cheese, until he had the full Tellson's favor and the blue mold upon him. Then only was he permitted to be seen, spectacularly poring over large books, and casting his breeches and gaiters into the general weight of the establishment. Outside Tellson's, never by any means in it, unless called in, was an odd job man, an occasional porter and messenger, who served as the live sign of the house. He was never absent during business hours, unless upon an errand, and then he was represented by his son, a grisly urchin, of 12, who was his express image. People understood that Tellson's, in a stately way, tolerated the odd job man. The house had always tolerated some person in that capacity, and time and tide had drifted this person to the post. His surname was Cruncher, and on youthful occasions of his renouncing by proxy the works of darkness in the easterly parish church of Houndsditch, he had received the added appellation of Jerry. The scene was Mr. Cruncher's private lodgings in Hanging Sword Alley, Whitefriars. The time, 7:30 on the windy March morning. Anno Domini 780. Mr. Cruncher himself always spoke of the year of our Lord as Anna Dominos, apparently under the impression that the Christian era dated from the invention of the popular game by a lady who had bestowed her name upon it. That is hilarious. I love that. Mr. Cruncher's apartments were not in a savory neighborhood. That is such a good character description of someone. Like, this is, again, this to me is like Dickens just having fun with things. Like, this is so great. Mr. Cruncher's apartments were not in a savory neighborhood. I'm going to start talking about neighborhoods as savory versus non-savory. Do you live in a savory neighborhood? And were but two in number. Even if a closet with a single pane of glass in it might be counted as one. But they were very decently kept. Early as it was, on the windy March morning, the room in which he lay abed was already scrubbed throughout, and between the cups and saucers arranged for breakfast and the lumbering deal table, a very clean white cloth was spread. Mr. Cruncher reposed under a patchwork counterpane, like a harlequin at home. At first he slept heavily, but by degrees began to roll and surge in bed, until he rose above the surface, with his spiky hair looking as if it must tear the sheets to ribbons, at which conjecture he exclaimed in a voice of dire exasperation, "Bust me, if she ain't at it again." A woman of orderly and industrious appearance rose from her knees in a corner, with sufficient haste and trepidation to show that she was the person referred to. "What?" said Mr. Cruncher, looking at a bed for a boot. "You're at it again, aren't you?" After hailing the morn with his second salutation, he threw a boot at the woman as a third. It was a very muddy boot, and may introduce the odd circumstance connected with Mr. Cruncher's domestic economy, that, whereas he often came home after banking hours with clean boots, he often got up the next morning to find the same boots covered with clay. Huh? Why? To me, anything that's in this era feels like grave digging. I don't know why, but I'm like, ever since we read Wuthering Heights, I'm like, anything that's done in the dead of night is grave digging. Clay? It's got to be clay or something like that. That's so weird. The mystery of the clay on the boots. What? Said Mr. Cruncher, varying his apostrophe after missing his mark. What a great sentence. Varying his apostrophe after missing his mark. What are you up to? Aggra-water? Aggra-waiter? Means... Here, as on page 128, Jerry means victuals. W for V is among his many characteristics and comic mispronunciations. Huh? Wait, did I read the wrong footnote 29? Oh, I did read the wrong footnote. I was gonna go, what the heck? The droll spelling, which makes Jerry seem more amused than aggravated, transcribes the Londoner pronunciation. William Baker in Sketches by Boz. The London medley that became Dickens' first book is similarly named Aggrawatin' Bill. Aggravator? Aggrawator? So he just says aggravator rather than aggravator. Aggravator? Aggravato. It's got a little speech impediment. I was only saying my prayers. So, hold on. Let me get the setting right. This is... Mr. Cruncher. Mr. Cruncher and son? Or his wife? His son and his wife? And this is Jerry Cruncher, right? So this is Jerry Cruncher, and he is just waking up, throws a boot at his wife. But his son is still chilling here. Just want to make sure I'm getting this right. The scene was... A woman, I mean, I guess we know this is, maybe we don't know. A woman of orderly and industrious appearance rose from her knees in a corner. Okay, I'm going to keep reading. All right, I think we're good. Okay, good, I'm right. Excellent, thank you. I was only saying my prayers. Saying your prayers? You're a nice woman. What do you mean by flopping yourself down and praying against me? I was not praying against you. I was praying for you. You were. You weren't. And if you were, I won't be took the library with, or I won't be took the liberty with. Here, your mother's a nice woman, young Jerry. Going to praying again your father's prosperity. You've got a dutiful mother. You have, my son. You've got a religious mother. You have, my boy. Going and flopping herself down and praying that the bread and butter may be snatched out of the mouth of her only child. Master Cruncher, who was in his shirt, took this very ill, and turning to his mother, strongly deprecated any praying away of his personal board. Why is the boy Master Cruncher? His first name isn't Master, right? Just how they refer to kids sometimes? Weird. Okay. Weird. All right. "And what do you suppose, you conceited female," said Mr. Cruncher with an unconscious inconsistency, "that the worth of your prayers may be? Name the price that you put your prayers at. "They only come from the heart, Jerry. They are worth no more than that." "Worth no more than that," repeated Mr. Cruncher. "They ain't worth much then. Whether or no, I won't be prayed again. I tell you, I can't afford it. I'm not going to be made unlucky by your sneaking. If you must go, flop yourself down. Flop in your favor of your husband and child, and not in opposition to them. If I had any but unnatural wife, and this poor boy had any but an unnatural mother, I might have made some money last week instead of being counter-prayed and countermined and religiously circumvented into the worst of luck." "Bust me," said Mr. Cruncher, who all this time had been putting on his clothes, "if I ain't, with that piety and one blowed thing and another been choused. These characters' dialogue is hilarious. Tricked. Choused is tricked. "This week into as bad luck as ever a poor devil of honest tradesman met with. Young Jerry, dress yourself, my boy, and while I clean my boots, keep an eye on your mother now and then, and if you see any signs of more flopping, give me a call. For I tell you," here he addressed his wife once more, "I won't be gone again in this manner. I am as rickety as a hackney coach. I'm as sleepy as laudanum. My lines is strained to that degree that I shouldn't know. If it wasn't for the pain in 'em, which was me and which somebody else, yet I'm none the better for it in pocket. And my suspicion that you've been at it from morning to night to prevent me from being the better for it in pocket, and I won't put up with it. Aggravator." And what do you say now? Growling in addition, such phrases as, "Ah, yes, you're religious too. You wouldn't put yourself in opposition of the interests of your husband and child, wouldn't you?" "Not you." And throwing off other sarcastic sparks from the whirling grindstone of his indignation, Mr. Cruncher betook himself to his boot cleaning and his general preparation for business. In the meantime, his son, whose head was garnished with tender spikes, and whose young eyes stood close by one another, as his father did, kept the required watch upon his mother. He greatly disturbed that poor woman at intervals by darting out of his sleeping closet, where he made his toilet, with a suppressed cry of, "You are going to flop, mother. Halloa, father," after raising this fictitious alarm, darting in again with an undutiful grin. Mr. Cruncher's temper was not at all improved when he came to his breakfast. He resented Mrs. Cruncher's saying grace with particular animosity. "Now, aggravator, what are you up to? At it again?" His wife explained that she had merely asked a blessing. "Don't do it," said Mr. Cruncher, looking about, as if he had rather expected to see the loaf disappear under the efficacy of his wife's petitions. "I ain't a-going to be blessed out of this house and home. I won't have my wittles blessed off my table. Keep still. Victuals. He knows how to write a funny character. Exceedingly red-eyed and grim, as if he had been up all night at a party which had taken anything but a convivial turn, Jerry Cruncher worried his breakfast rather than ate it, growling over it like any four-footed inmate of a menagerie. Toward 9 o'clock, he smoothed his ruffled aspect, and presenting as respectful and business-like an exterior as he could overlay his natural self with, issued forth to the occupation of the day. It could scarcely be called a trade. Excuse me. It could scarcely be called a trade in spite of his favorite description of himself as an honest tradesman. His stock consisted of a wooden stool made out of a broad bracketed chair cut down, which stool young Jerry, walking at his father's side, carried every morning to beneath the banking house window that was nearest Temple Bar, where, with the addition of the first handful of straw that could be gleaned from any passing vehicle to keep the cold and wet from the odd job man's feet, it formed the encampment for the day. On this post of his, Mr. Cruncher was well known to Fleet Street and to the Temple as the bar itself, and was almost as ill-looking. Encamped at 9:15, in good time to touch his three-corners hat to the oldest of men as they passed into Tellson's, Jerry took up his station on this windy March morning, with young Jerry standing by him. When not engaged in making forays through the bar to inflict bodily and mentally injuries of an acute description on passing boys who were small enough for his amiable purpose, father and son were extremely like each other, looking silently at the morning traffic in the Fleet Street, with their two heads as near to one another as the two eyes of each were, bore a considerable resemblance to a pair of monkeys. The resemblance was not lessened by the accidental circumstance that the mature Jerry bit and spat out straw, while the twinkling eyes of the youthful Jerry were as restlessly watchful of him as of everything else in the Fleet Street. The head of one of the regular indoor messengers attached to Tellson's establishment was put through the door, and the word was given. Porter wanted. Hooray, father. Here's an early job to begin with. Having thus given his parent Godspeed, young Jerry seated himself on the stool, entered on his reversionary interest in the straw his father had been chewing, and cogitated. Always rusty. His finger is always rusty, muttered young Jerry. Where does my father get all that iron rust from? He don't get no iron rust here. Okay, so he's digging. I think he's a grave digger. I think he's trying to earn an extra few bucks being a grave digger. Unless he's working like in an iron factory with clay, or like maybe he's honestly just like trying to get ore. It's weird. Anytime Jerry says flopping, he means praying. Okay, interesting. People still send mail to babies, little ones, addressed to the master or master of the house. Interesting. Master is what kids get called until they're old enough to be called Mister. Huh. I did not know that. That's crazy. That's cool. So actually, maybe he's not a grave digger. Maybe he's just like working in, I don't know. He's digging something. He's got iron in his fingers. His fingers are always rusty. And he's got clay on his boots. Ugh. So that's a little suspicious. All right, chapter 2. A sight. You know the Old Bailey well, no doubt. Another footnote. Getting a lot of footnotes. The Old Bailey had, by the time of Darnay's trial, been in use as a criminal court for some 7 years. Rebuilt and expanded, it retained that function in the Victorian period. Okay. You know the Old Bailey well, no doubt, said one of the oldest clerks to Jerry the messenger. Yes, sir, returned Jerry, in something of a dogged manner. I do know the Bailey. Just so, and you know Mr. Lorry. I know Mr. Lorry, sir, much better than I know the Bailey. Much better, said Jerry, not unlike the reluctant witness at the establishment in question. Then I, as an honest tradesman, wish to know the Bailey. Huh. Very well. Find the door where the witnesses go in, and show the doorkeeper this note for Mr. Lorry. He will then let you in. Into the court, sir? Into the court. Did he become a lawyer? Mr. Cruncher's eyes seemed to get a little closer to one another, and to interchange the inquiry. What do you think of this? Am I to wait in the court, sir? He asked, as a result of that conference. I am going to tell you. The doorkeeper will pass the note to Mr. Lorry. And do you make any gesture that will attract Mr. Lorry's attention and show him where you stand? Then what you have to do is to remain there until he wants you. Is it all, sir? That's all. He wishes to have a messenger at hand. Okay. This is to tell him you are there. As the ancient clerk deliberately folded and superscribed the note, Mr. Cruncher, after surveying him in silence until he came to a blotting paper stage, remarked, I suppose they'll be trying forgeries this morning. Treason. That's quartering, said Jerry. Barbarous. It's the law, remarked the ancient clerk, turning his surprised spectacles upon him. It's the law. It's hard in the law to spile a man. A footnote or endnote. Spile for spoil. Just as the previous chapter, he said lines for loins. Oh. And seems to give the verb to spoil its traditional polter sense of to carve or cut up. It's hard enough to kill him, but it's very hard to spile him, sir. Not at all, returned the ancient clerk, speaking well of the law. Take care of your chest and your voice, my good friend, and leave no law to take care of itself. I give you that advice. It's the damp, sir. What settles on my chest and voice, said Jerry. I leave you to judge what a damp way of earning a living mine is. What a damp way of earning a living mine is? Well, said the old clerk. We have our various ways of gaining a livelihood. Some of us have damp ways. Some of us have dry ways. Here's the letter. Go along. Jerry took the letter, and remarking to himself, with a less internal difference than he made an outward show of, You are a lean old one, too, made his bow, informed his son in passing of his destination, and went his way. They hanged at Tyburn in those days, so the street outside Newgate had not obtained one infamous notoriety that has since attained to it. Dang. What's the infamous notoriety? He acts like I know what that is. But I don't know what that is, Charles. What is the infamous notoriety? Yeah, it's a good point. Whatever he's doing, he thinks praying is going to make him less successful. Definitely feels like grave digging. I don't know why I'm so stuck on that. Or I don't know what else it would be. If his boots are dirty, if his hands are all irony and rusty. I don't know. Where are we? So they hanged at Tyburn. In those days, so the street outside Newgate had not obtained one infamous notoriety that has since attached to it. Does he tell us right after? But the gaol was a vile place, in which most kinds of debauchery and villainy were practiced, and where dire disease were bred, that came into court with the prisoners, and sometimes rushed straight from the dock at my Lord Chief Justice himself, and pulled him off the bench. It had more than once happened that the judge in the black cap pronounced his own doom as certain as the prisoner's, and even died before him. For the rest, the Old Bailey was famous as a kind of deadly inn-yard, from which pale travelers set out continually, in carts and coaches, on a violent passage into the other world, traversing some 2.5 miles of public street and road, and shamming few good citizens, if any. So powerful is use, and so desirable to be good use in the beginning. It was famous, too, for the pillory, a wise old institution that inflicted a punishment of which no one could foresee the extent. Also, for the whipping post, another dear old institution, very humanizing, and often and softened to behold in action also, for extensive transactions in blood money, another fragment of ancestral wisdom, systematically leading to the most frightened mercenary crimes that can be committed under heaven. Altogether, the Old Bailey at that date was a choice illustration of the precept that whatever is right. An aphorism that would be as final as it is lazy, did not include the troublesome consequence that nothing that ever was wrong. Precept is Alexander Pope's in Epistle 1 of his Essays on Man. Whatever is right. That nothing that ever was wrong. Making his way through the tainted crowd, dispersed up and down this hideous scene of action, with the skill of a man accustomed to make his way quietly, the messenger found not the door he sought, and handed in his letters through a trap in it. For people then paid to see the play at the Old Bailey, just as they paid to see the play in Bedlam. Only the former entertainment was much the dearer. Therefore all the Old Bailey doors were well guarded, except, indeed, the social doors by which the criminals got there, and those were always left wide open. After some delay and demur, the door grudgingly turned on its hinges a very little way, and allowed Mr. Jerry Cruncher to squeeze himself into court. "What's on?" he asked, in a whisper, of the man he found himself next to. "Nothing yet." "What's coming on?" "The treason case." "The quartering one, eh?" "Ah," returned the man with relish. "He'll be drawn on a hurdle to be half hanged, and then he'll be taken down and sliced before his own face. And then his insides will be taken out and burnt while he looks on. And then his head will be chopped off and he'll be cut into quarters. That's the sentence. Gosh. Sheesh. Guessing the executions were held later in Newgate. Yeah, probably. Gal is a jail. Okay. Gal pronounced as jail. Interesting. Okay, thank you. If he's found guilty, you mean to say, Jerry added, by way of proviso. "Oh, they'll find him guilty," said the other. "Don't you be afraid of that." Mr. Cruncher's attention was here diverted to the doorkeeper, whom he saw making his way to Mr. Lorry with the note in his hand. Mr. Lorry sat at a table, among the gentlemen in wigs, not far from a winged gentleman, the prisoner's counsel, who had a great bundle of papers before him, and nearly opposite another wigged gentleman with his hands in his pockets, whose whole attention, when Mr. Cruncher looked at him then or afterward, seemed to be concentrated on the ceiling of the court. After some gruff coughing and rubbing of his chin and signing with his hand, Jerry attracted the notice of Mr. Lorry, who had stood up to look for him, and who quietly nodded and sat down again. "What's he got to do with the case?" asked the man he had spoken with. "Blessed if I know," said Jerry. "What have you got to do with it, then, if a person may inquire?" "Blessed if I know that either," said Jerry. The entrance of the judge and the consequent great sir, and settling down in the court, stopped the dialogue. Presently the dock became a central point of interest. 2 jailers, who had been standing there, went out, and the prisoner was brought in and put to the bar. Everybody present, except the one wigged gentleman who looked at the ceiling, stared at him. All the human breath in the place rolled at him like a sea or a wind or a fire. Eager faces strained round pillars and corners to get a sight of him. Spectators in back rows stood up, not to miss a hair of him. People on the floor of the court laid their hands on shoulders of the people before them to help themselves, at anybody's cost, to a view of him. Stood tiptoe, got up on ledges, stood upon next to nothing to see every inch of him. Conspicuous among these, like an animated bit of the spiked wall of Newgate, Jerry stood, aiming at the prisoner the beery breath of a wet he had taken as he came along, and discharging it to mingle with the waves of other beer, and gin, and tea, and coffee, and whatnot that floated him, and already broke upon the great windows behind him in an impure mist and rain. Why is everyone so interested in this guy's case? And why is there a guy just staring at the ceiling? Who's the wigged gentleman staring at the ceiling? The object of all this staring and blaring was a young man of about 25, well-grown and well-looking, with a sunburnt cheek and dark eye. His condition was that of a young gentleman. He was plainly dressed in black, or very dark gray, and his hair, which was long and dark, was gathered in a ribbon at the back of his neck, more to be out of his way than for ornament. As an emotion of the mind will express itself through any covering of the body, so the paleness which his situation engendered came through the brown upon his cheeks, showing the soul to be stronger than the sun. And as an emotion of the mind will express itself through the covering of the body, so the paleness which his situation engendered came through the brown upon his cheek, showing the soul to be stronger than the sun. He was otherwise quite self-possessed, bowed to the judge, and stood quiet. What does this sentence mean? As an emotion of the mind will express itself through any covering of the body. So the paleness with which his situation engendered came through the brown upon his cheek, showing the soul to be stronger than the sun. He looks pale through his tan. Oh, okay. So his soul is coming out through the brightness of the sun. Oh, okay. It's a strange sentence. I kind of like that sentence, but it's a strange sentence. All right, let's keep reading. The sort of interest with which this man was stared and breathed at, was not a sort that elevated humanity. He had stood in peril of a less horrible sentence, had there been a chance of any one of its savage details being spared. By just so much would he have lost in his fascination. The form that was to be doomed to be so shamefully mangled was a sight. The immortal creature that was to be so butchered and torn asunder yielded the sensation. Whatever gloss the various spectators put upon the interest, according to their several arts and powers of self-deceit, the interest was, at the root of it, ogreish. Silence on the court. Charles Darnay had yesterday pleaded not guilty to an indictment denouncing him with infinite jingle and jangle, for that he was a false traitor to our serene, illustrious, excellent, and so forth prince, our lord the king, by reason of having, on divers occasions, and by divers means and ways, assisted Louis, the French king. Louis, Lewis. I'm guessing that's Louis. Unless there is a Louis king. In his wars against our said serene, illustrious, excellent, and so forth. That was to say, by coming and going between the dominions of our said serene, illustrious, excellent, and so forth, and those of the said French Louis, and wickedly, falsely, traitorously, and otherwise evil adverbiously, revealing to the said French Louis what forces our said serene, illustrious, excellent, and so forth had in preparation to send to Canada in North America. This is great. What a sentence. That was a wild sentence. Hold on 1 second. I gotta clear my throat. That is a wild sentence. This much, Jerry, with his head becoming more and more spiky as the law terms bristled it, made out with a huge satisfaction, and so arrived circuitously at the understanding that the aforesaid, and over and again, aforesaid Charles Darnay stood there before him on his trial, that the jury were swearing in, and that the attorney general was making ready to speak. The accused who was, and who he knew was, being mentally hanged, beheaded, and quartered by everybody there, neither flinched from the situation nor assumed any theatrical air in it. He was quiet and attentive, watched the opening proceedings with a grave interest, and stood with his hands resting on the slab of wood before him, so composedly that they had not displaced the leaf of the herbs with which it was strewn. The court was all bestrewn with herbs and sprinkled with vinegar, as a precaution against jail air and jail fever. Over the prisoner's head there was a mirror, to throw light down upon him. Crowds of the wicked and wretched had been reflected in it, and it had passed from its surface and this earth's together, haunted in a most ghastly manner. That abominable place would have been, if the glass could have ever rendered back its reflection, as the ocean is one day to give up its dead. Some passing thought of the infamy and disgrace for which it has been reversed, or from which it has been reserved, may have struck the prisoner's mind. Be that as it may, a change in his position, making him conscious of a bar of light across his face, he looked up, and when he saw the glass of his face flush, and his right hand pushed the herbs away, it happened that the action turned his face to that side of the court which was on his left. About on level with his eyes, there sat, in that corner of the judge's bench, two persons upon whom his look immediately rested. So immediately, and so much to the changing of his aspect, that all the eyes were turned upon him, turned to them. The spectators saw the two figures, a young lady of little more than 20, and a gentleman who was evidently her father, a man of very remarkable appearance in respect of the absolute whiteness of his hair, and a certain indescribable intensity of face, not of an active kind, but pondering and self-communing. When this expression was upon him, he looked as if he were old, but when it was stirred and broken up, as it was now, in a moment, on his speaking to his daughter, he became a handsome man, not past the prime of life. Oh, that's sweet. His daughter had one of her hands drawn through his arm, as she sat by him, and the other pressed upon it. She had drawn close to him in her dread of the scene, and in her pity for the prisoner. Her forehead had been strikingly expressive of an engrossing terror and compassion that saw nothing but the peril of the accused. This had been so very noticeable, so very powerfully and naturally shown, that starers who had no pity for him were touched by her, and the whisper went about, "Who are they?" Jerry the messenger, who had made his own observations in his own manner, and who had been sucking the rust off his fingers in absorption, stretched his neck to hear who they were. The crowd about him had pressed and passed the inquiry to the nearest attendant, and from it had been more slowly pressed and passed back. At last it got to Jerry. Witnesses. For which side? Against. Against what side? The prisoners. The judge, whose eyes had gone in the general direction, recalled them, leaned back in his seat, and looked steadily at the man whose life was in his hands. As Mr. Attorney General rose to spin the rope, grind the axe, and hammer the nails into the scaffold. So, what's this guy's name again? Charles Darnay. Charles Darnay. So Charles Darnay is on trial, and the Minets are against him. I'm guessing. I don't understand some law, apparently. Okay, good. Drea, what's up? Yeah, I feel like Dickens is just making social commentaries on court and law. He's like, no one understands this stuff. Why do we say all this stuff over and over and over again? It's pretty great. It's hilarious stuff. And there are witnesses called against him. Interesting. Okay. What did this guy do? Or we kind of know what he did. He was against the king. I lost it in that legalese. He was a false traitor. He pleaded not guilty to being a false traitor. Okay. All right, this is chapter 3, A Disappointment. This is the long chapter, about 10 pages. Alrighty, let's keep reading. Treason. The accusation is that he helped the King of France in his war against England. Okay, interesting. He's just a big disappointment. A disappointment. Chapter 3. Hold on 1 second. I gotta clear my throat again. All right, we're good. Mr. Attorney General had to inform the jury that the prisoner before them, though young in years, was old in the treasonable practices which claimed the forfeit of his life. The correspondence with the public enemy was not a correspondence of today, or of yesterday, or even of last year, or the year before. That it was certain the prisoner had, for longer than that, been in the habit of passing and repassing between France and England, on the secret business of which he could give no honest account. That if it were in the nature of a traitorous way to thrive, which happily it never was, the real wickedness and guilt of his business might have remained undiscovered. That Providence, however, had put into the heart of a young person who was beyond fear and beyond reach to ferret out the nature of the prisoner's scheme, and struck with horror to disclose them to his Majesty's Chief Secretary in State and most honorable Privy Council. That this patriot would be produced before them, that his position and attitude were on the whole sublime, that he had been the prisoner's friend, but at once, in an auspicious and an evil hour, detecting his infamy, had resolved to immolate the traitor so that he could no longer cherish in his bosom on the sacred altar of his country. That if statues were decreed in Britain, as in ancient Greece and Rome, to public benefactors, and shining citizens would assuredly have one. That, as they were not so decreed, he probably would not have one. That virtue as had been observed by the poets in many passages in which he knew the jury would have, word for word, at the tips of their tongues, whereat the jury's countenance displayed a guilty conscience that they knew nothing about the passages, was in a manner contagious, more especially the bright virtue known as patriotism, or love of country. That the lofty example of this immaculate and unimpeachable witness for the crown, to refer to whom, however unworthy was an honor, had communicated itself to the prisoner's servant, and had engendered him in a holy determination to examine his master's table, drawers, and pockets, and the secret papers. That he, Mr. Attorney General, was prepared to hear some disparagement attempted of his admirable servant, but that, in a general way, he preferred him to his, Mr. Attorney General's, brother and sister, and honored him more than his, Mr. Attorney General's, father and mother. This is a crazy paragraph. That he called with confidence on the jury to come and do likewise. That the evidence of these two witnesses, coupled with the documents of their discovering that would be produced, would show the prisoners to have been furnished with lists of His Majesty's forces and their disposition and preparation, both by sea and land, and would leave no doubt that he had habitually conveyed information. He had conveyed such information to a hostile power, that these lists could not be proved to be in the prisoner's handwriting, but that it was all the same. That indeed it was rather the better for the prosecution, as showing the prisoner to be artful in his precautions. That the proof would go back 5 years, and would show the prisoner already engaged in these pernicious missions, within a few weeks before the date of the very first action. Action is footnoted. 36. Fought at first action fought between the British troops and the Americans. Fought at Lexington on 19th of April, 1775. All right. That for these reasons, the jury, being a loyal jury, as he knew they were, and being a reasonable jury, as they knew they were, must positively find the prisoner guilty and make an end of him, whether they liked him or not. That they never could lay their heads upon their pillow. That they never could tolerate the idea of their wives laying their heads upon their pillow. That they could never endure the notion of their children laying their heads upon their pillow. In short, that there were never more could be, for them or theirs, any laying of heads upon pillows at all, unless the prisoner's head was taken off. That head, Mr. Attorney General concluded by demanding of them, in the name of everything that he could think of, it with a round turn in it, and on the faith of his solemn asseveration that he already considered the prisoner as good as dead and gone. This writing is wild. I think this is like crazy, like the law writing that he has here to explain law, but I could read books of this. I mean, like, I don't know if I could read them out loud, but this is so funny. I want Charles Dickens to be a journalist and to go give us courtroom writings of whatever's happening in crazy court cases all around the world. No pillows will ever find another head to... Yeah. This is hilarious. Court writings. When the Attorney General ceased, a buzz arose in the court, as if a crowd of great blue flies were swarming about the prisoner in anticipation of what he was soon to become. When toned down again, the unimpeachable patriot appeared in the witness box. Mr. Solicitor General then, following his leader's lead, examined the patriot, John Barsad, gentleman by name. The story of his pure soul was exactly what Mr. Attorney General had described it to be. Perhaps, if it had a fault, a little too exactly. Having released his noble bosom of its burden, he would have modestly withdrawn himself, but that the Whig gentleman with the papers before him, sitting not far from Mr. Lorry, begged to ask him a few questions. The Whig gentleman sitting opposite, still looking at the ceiling of the court. Had he ever been a spy himself? Wait, hold on. So, who is the Whig gentleman looking at the ceiling of the court? Is that Darnay? He would be an amazing law streamer, live streamer on LawTube. That was actually one of his jobs. That's hilarious. I love that. Who's the guy that's looking up at the ceiling? Is that Darnay? The Whig gentleman sitting opposite, still looking at the ceiling of the court. Had he ever been a spy himself? No. He scorned the base insinuation. What did he live upon? His property. Where was his property? He didn't precisely remember where it was. What was it? No business of anybody's. Had he inherited it? Yes, he had. From whom? Distant relations. Very distant? Rather. Ever been in prison? Certainly not. Never in a debtor's prison? Didn't see what that had to do with it. Never in a debtor's prison? Come, once again, never? Yes. How many times? 2 or 3. Not 5 or 6? Perhaps. Of what profession? Gentleman. Ever been kicked? Might have been. Frequently? No. Ever kicked downstairs? Decidedly not. Once received a kick on the top of the staircase and fell downstairs of his own accord. Kicked on that occasion for cheating at dice. Something to that effect was said by the intoxicated liar who committed the assault, but it was not true. Swear it was not true. Positively. Ever live by cheating at play? Never. Ever live by play? Not more than other gentlemen do. Ever borrow money of the prisoner? Yes. Ever pay him? No. Was not this intimacy with the prisoner in reality a very slight one, forced upon the prisoner in coaches, inns, and packets? No. Sure he saw the prisoner with these lists. Sure he saw the prisoner with these lists? Certain. Knew no more about the lists? No. Had not procured them himself, for instance? No. Expect to get anything by this evidence? No. Or to do anything? Oh, dear no. Swear that? Over and over again. No motives but motives of sheer patriotism? None whatever. These paragraphs are great. I love this. Okay, so the guy looking up is the defense lawyer, the barrister. Okay, interesting. That's not Darnay. Yeah, I thought Darnay was the one looking up, but I guess not. That's the defense lawyer. The virtuous servant, Roger Cly, swore his way through the case at great rate. He had taken service with the prisoner, in good faith and simplicity, 4 years ago. He had asked the prisoner aboard the Calais packet if he wanted a handy fellow, and the prisoner had engaged him. He had not asked the prisoner to take the handy fellow as an act of charity, never thought of such a thing. He began to have suspicions of the prisoner, and to keep an eye on him soon afterwards. In arranging his clothes while traveling, he had seen similar lists to these in the prisoner's pockets, over and over again. He had taken these lists from the drawers of the prisoner's desk. He had not put them there first. He had seen the prisoner show these identical lists to the French gentleman at Calais, and similar lists to French gentlemen, both at Calais and Boulogne. He loved his country, and couldn't bear it, and had given information. He had never been suspected of stealing a silver teapot. He had been maligned respecting a mustard pot, but it turned out to be only a plated one. He had known the last witness 7 or 8 years. That was merely a coincidence. He didn't call it a particularly curious coincidence. Most coincidences were curious. Neither did he call it a curious coincidence that true patriotism was his only motive too. He was a true Briton, and hoped there were many like him. The blue flies buzzed again, and Mr. Attorney General called Mr. Jarvis Lorry. Mr. Jarvis Lorry, are you a clerk in Tellson's bank? I am. On a certain Friday night in November 1775, did business occasion you to travel between London and Dover by the mail? Oh, interesting. It did. Were there any other passengers in the mail? 2. Did they alight on the road in the course of the night? This is crazy. So 5 years ago, he's supposed to remember a face. I can't remember a face if it was yesterday. What? I don't love that Jarvis Lorry was called in to be a witness for this. Were there any other passengers in the mail? 2. Did they alight on the road in the course of the night? They did. Mr. Lorry looked upon the prisoner. Mr. Lorry, look upon the prisoner. Was he one of those 2 passengers? I cannot undertake to say that he was. Does he resemble either of these 2 passengers? Both were so wrapped up, and the night was so dark, and we were all so reserved that I cannot undertake to say even that. Okay, good, Mr. Lorry. Like that. Mr. Lorry looked again upon the prisoner, supposing him wrapped up as these 2 passengers were. Is there anything in his bulk and stature to render it unlikely that he was one of them? No. You will not swear, Mr. Lorry, that he was not one of them? No. So at least you say he may have been one of them. This is a farce. This is insane. Yes, except I remember them both to have been, like myself, timorous of highwaymen, and the prisoner has not a timorous air. Did you ever see a counterfeit of timidity, Mr. Lorry? I certainly have seen that. Mr. Lorry looked once more upon the prisoner. Have you seen him, to your certain knowledge, before? I have. When? I was returning from France a few days afterward, and at Calais the prisoner came on board the packet ship in which I returned, and made the voyage with me. At what hour did he come on board? A little after midnight. In the dead of the night? Was he the only passenger who came on board at that untimely hour? He happened to be the only one. Never mind about happening, Mr. Lorry. He was the only passenger who came on board in the dead of night. He was. Were you traveling alone, Mr. Lorry, or with companion? With 2 companions, a gentleman and a lady. They are here. They are here. Had you any conversation with the prisoner? Hardly anywhere. Hardly any. The weather was stormy and the passage long and rough, and I lay on a sofa, almost from shore to shore. Miss Manette, the young lady to whom all eyes had been turned before, and were now turned again, stood up and where she sat. Her father rose with her, and kept her hand drawn through his arm. Miss Manette look upon the prisoner. To be confronted with such pity and such earnest youth and beauty was far more trying to the accursed than to be confronted with all the crowd, standing as it were apart with her on the edge of his grave. Not all the staring curiosity that looked on could for the moment nerve him to remain quite still. His hurried right hand parceled out the herbs before him into imaginary beds of flowers in a garden. and his efforts to control and steady his breathing shook the lips from which the color rushed to his heart. The buzz of the great flies was loud again. Miss Manette. Have you seen the prisoner before? Yes, sir. Where? On board the packet ship just now referred to, sir, and on the same occasion. You are the young lady just now referred to? Oh, most unhappily I am. The plaintive tone of her compassion merged into the less musical voice of the judge, as he said something fiercely. Answer the question put to you, and make no remark upon them. Miss Manette, had you any conversation with the prisoner on that passage across the channel? Yes, sir. Recall it. In the midst of a profound stillness, she faintly began. When the gentleman came on board. Do you mean the prisoner? Inquired the judge, knitting his brows. Yes, my lords. Then say the prisoner. When the prisoner came on board, he noticed that my father, turning his eyes lovingly to him as he stood beside her, was much fatigued and in a weary state of health. My father was so reduced that I was afraid to take him out of the air. And I had made a bed for him on the deck near the cabin steps, and I sat on the deck at his side to take care of him. There were no other passengers that night, but we four. The prisoner was so good as to beg permission to advise me how I could shelter my father from the wind and weather, better than I had done. I had not known how well to do it, not understanding how the wind would set when we were out of the harbor. He did it for me. He expressed great gentleness and kindness of my father's state. I am sure he felt it. That was the manner of our beginning to speak together. Let me interrupt you for a moment. Had he come on board alone? No. How many were with him? 2 French gentlemen. Had they conferred together? They had conferred together until the last moment when it was necessary for the French gentlemen to be landed in their boat. Had any papers been handed about them, similar to these lists? Some papers had been handed about them, but I don't know what papers. Like these in shape and size? Possibly. But indeed, I don't know. Although they stood whispering very near to me, because they stood at the top of the cabin steps to have the light of the lamp that was hanging there. It was a dull lamp, and they spoke very low. I did not hear what they said, and saw only that they looked at papers. Now to the prisoner's conversation, Miss Manette. The prisoner was as open as his confidence with me, which arose out of my helpless situation, as he was kind and good and useful to my father. I hope, bursting into tears, I may not repay him by doing him harm today. Buzzing from the blue flies. Miss Manette, if the prisoner does not perfectly understand that you give evidence which it is your duty to give, which you must give, and which you cannot escape from giving, with great unwillingness, he is the only person present in that condition. Please go on. He told me that he was traveling on business of a delicate and difficult nature, which might get people into trouble, and that he was therefore traveling under an assumed name. He said that this business had, within a few days, taken him to France, and might, at intervals, take him backward and forward between France and England for a long time to come. Did he say anything about America, Miss Manette? Be particular. Wait, why are they obsessed about America? I thought this was between France and England. Why are we brought into this mess? I like it. Objection. Yeah, he wasn't a prisoner at the time. Come on, what are we talking about? Funky. Oh, so this was the Revolutionary War. Ooh, the Revolution. That's right. I totally forgot the date. 1776. Good old 1776. 1780 right now. He tried to explain to me how that quarrel had arisen, and he said that, so far as he could judge, it was a wrong and foolish one on England's part. He added in a jesting way that perhaps George Washington might gain almost as great a name in history as George III. But there was no harm in his way of saying this. It was said laughingly, to beguile the time. Any strongly marked expression of the face of the part of the chief actor in the scene of great interest to whom many eyes are directed will be unconsciously imitated by the spectators. Her forehead was painfully anxious and intent as she gave this evidence, and in the pauses, when she stopped for the judge to write down, watched its effect upon the counsel for and against. Among the lookers on, there was the same expression in all quarter of the court, insomuch that a great majority of the foreheads there might have been mirrors reflecting the witness when the judge looked up from his notes to glare at the tremendous heresy about George Washington. What a bunch of bitter Yanks. Mr. Attorney General now signified to my lord that he deemed it necessary, as a matter of precaution and form, to call the young lady's father, Dr. Manette, who was called accordingly. Dr. Manette, look upon the prisoner. Have you ever seen him before? Once, when he called at my lodgings in London some 3 years and 3.5 years ago. Can you identify him as your fellow passenger on board the packet, or speak to this conversation with your daughter? Sir, I can do neither. Is there any particular and special reason for your being unable to do either? He answered in a low voice, There is. Has it been your misfortune to undergo a long imprisonment without trial or even accusation in your own native country, Dr. Manette? He answered in a tone that went to every heart. A long imprisonment. Were you newly released on the occasion in question? They tell me so. Have you remembrance of the occasion? None. My mind is blank from some time. I cannot even say that time, when I employed myself in my captivity in making shoes, to the time when I found myself living in London, with my dear daughter here. She had become familiar to me, when a gracious God restored my faculties. But I am quite unable to say how she had become familiar. I have no remembrance of the process. There's an image of this going on. Kind of fun, little courtroom drama going on right now. Mr. Attorney General sat down, and the father and daughter sat down together. A singular circumstance then arose in the case. The object in hand being to show the prisoner went down, with some fellow plotter untracked, in the Dover mail on that Friday night in November 5 years ago, and got out of the mail in the night as a blind at a place where he did not remain, but from which he traveled back some dozen miles or more, to a garrison and dockyard, and there collected information. A witness was called to identify him as having been at the precise time required in the coffee room of a hotel in that garrison and dockyard town, waiting for another person. The prisoner's counsel was cross-examining his witness with no result, except that he had never seen the prisoner on any other occasion, when the Whig gentleman who had all this time been looking at the ceiling of the court wrote a word or two on a little piece of paper, screwed it up, and tossed it to him. Opening this piece of paper in the next pause, the counsel looked with great attention and curiosity at this prisoner. You say again you are quite sure that it was the prisoner? The witness was quite sure. Did you ever see anybody very like this prisoner? No, not so like, the witness said, as that he could be mistaken. Well, look upon that gentleman, my learned friend there, pointing to him who had tossed the paper over, and then look upon the prisoner. How say you? Are they very alike each other? Allowing for my learned friend's appearance being careless and slovenly, if not debauched, they were sufficiently like each other to surprise, not only the witness, but everybody present. When they were thus brought into comparison, my lord, being prayed to bid my learned friend lay aside his wig, and give no very gracious consent, the likeness became much more remarkable. My lord inquired of Mr. Stryver, the prisoner's counsel, whether they were next to try Mr. Carton, name of my learned friend, for treason. But Mr. Stryver replied to my lord, no, but he would ask the witness to tell him whether what happened once might happen twice, whether he would have been so confident as if he had seen this illustration of his rashness sooner, whether he would be so confident having seen it, and more. The upshot of which was to smash this witness like a crockery vessel, and shiver his part to the case to the useless lumber. So he's essentially saying that there's another guy that looks just like him, Sidney Carton, I think that's what the guy's name is. I don't know why I remember Sidney Carton. Mr. Carton looks exactly like Darnay. Okay. Stryver and Carton are the defenses. Carton looks like Darnay. Okay, interesting. And so he's just essentially like, these two people look alike. We should dismiss this case because they look alike. I wonder if he switched them. If the person who was standing that is up for trial is actually Carton. And I don't think they'd be able to do that, but Mr. Cruncher had by this time taken quite a lunch of rust off his fingers in his following the evidence. He had now to attend while Mr. Stryver fitted the prisoner's case on the jury, like a compact suit of clothes, showing them how the patriot, Barsad, was a hired spy and traitor, an unblushing trafficker in blood, and one of the greatest scoundrels upon the earth since the accursed Judas, which he certainly did rather look like. How the virtuous servant Cly was his friend and partner, and was worthy to be. How the watchful eyes of those forgers and false swearers had rested on the prisoner as a victim, because some family affairs in France, he being of French extraction, did require his making those passages just across the channel. Though what those affairs were, a consideration for others who were near and dear to him, forbade him, even for his life, to disclose. That's so weird. Why can't he disclose that? How the evidence that had been warped and wrested from the young lady, whose anguish in giving it they had witnessed, came to nothing, involving the mere little innocent gallantries and politeness likely to pass between any young gentleman and young lady so thrown together, with the exception of that reference to George Washington, which is altogether too extravagant and impossible to regard in any other light as a monstrous joke. How it would be a weakness in the government to break down in this attempt to practice for popularity on the lowest national antipathies and fears, and therefore Mr. Attorney General had made the most of it. How, nevertheless, it had rested upon nothing save that vile and infamous character of evidence too often disfiguring such cases, and of which the state trials of this country were full. But there my lord interposed, with as grave a face as if it had not been true, saving that he could not sit upon that bench and suffer those illusions. Mr. Stryver then called his few witnesses, and Mr. Cruncher had next to attend while Mr. Attorney General turned the whole suit of clothes Mr. Stryver had fitted on the jury inside out, showing how Barsad and Cly were even 100 times better than he had thought them, and the prisoner 100 times worse. Lastly came the Lord himself, turning the suit of clothes now inside out, now outside in, but on the whole decidedly trimming and shaping them into grave clothes for the prisoner. And now the jury turned to consider, and the great flies swarmed again. Mr. Carton, who had so long sat at the ceiling of the court, changed neither his place nor his attitude. Even in this excitement, while his learned friend, Mr. Stryver, missing his papers before him, whispered with those who sat near, and from time to time glanced anxiously at the jury, while all the spectators moved more or less, and grouped themselves anew, while even my lord himself arose from his seat and slowly paced up and down his platform, not unattended by a suspicion in the minds of the audience that his state was feverish. This one man sat leaning back, with his torn gown half off him, his untidy wig put on just as it happened to light on his head after its removal, his hands in his pockets, and his eyes on the ceiling, as they had been all day. Something especially reckless in his demeanor not only gave him a disreputable look, but so diminished the strong resemblance he undoubtedly bore to a prisoner, which his momentary earnestness, when they were compared together, had strengthened, that many of the onlookers, taking a note of him now, said to one another they would hardly have thought the two were so alike. Mr. Cruncher made the observation to his next neighbor, and added, "I'd hold half a guinea that he don't get no law work to do. Don't look like the sort of one to get any, do he?" Yet this Mr. Carton, more and more in the details of the scene than he appeared to take in, for now when Miss Manette's head dropped upon her father's breast, he was the first to see it, and to say audibly, "Officer, look to that young lady. Help the gentleman to take her out. Don't you see she will fall?" There was much commiseration for her as she was removed, and much sympathy with her father. It had evidently been a great distress to him to have the days of his imprisonment recalled. He had shown strong internal agitation when he was questioned, and that pondering or brooding look which made him old had been upon him like a heavy cloud ever since, and he passed out. As he passed out, the jury, who had turned back and paused a moment, spoke through their foreman. They were not agreed and wished to retire. My lord, perhaps with George Washington on his mind, showed some surprise that they were not agreed, but signified his pleasure that they should retire under watch and ward, and retire himself. The trial had lasted all day, and the lamps in the court were now being lighted. It began to be rumored that the jury would be out a while longer. The spectators dropped off to get refreshments, and the prisoners withdrew to the back of the dock and sat down. Mr. Lorry, who had gone out when the young lady and her father went out, now reappeared, and beckoned to Jerry, who in the slackened interest could easily get near him. "Jerry, if you wish to take something to eat, you can, but keep in the way. You will be sure to hear when the jury comes in. Don't be a moment behind them, for I want you to take the verdict back to the bank. You are the quickest messenger I know. You will get to Temple Bar long before I can." Jerry had just enough forehead to knuckle, and he knuckled in acknowledgement of this communication and the shilling. Mr. Carton came up at the moment and touched Mr. Lorry on the arm. "How is the young lady?" "She is greatly distressed, but her father is comforting her, and she feels the better for being out of court." "I'll tell the prisoner so. It won't do for a respectable bank gentleman like you to be seen speaking to him publicly, you know." Mr. Lorry reddened as if he were conscious of having debated the point on his mind, and Mr. Carton made his way to the outside of the bar. The way out of the court lay in that direction, and Jerry followed him, all ears, eyes, and spikes. "Mr. Darnay!" The prisoner came forward directly. "You will naturally be anxious to hear of the witness, Miss Manette. She will do very well. You have seen the worst of her agitations. I am deeply sorry to have been the cause of it. Could you tell her so for me, with my fervent acknowledgments?" "Yes, I could. I will, if you ask it." Mr. Carton's manner was so careless as to be almost insolent. He stood, half turned from the prisoner, lounging with his elbow against the bar. I do ask it. Accept my cordial thanks. What? Said Carton, sullenly half turned toward him. Do you expect, Mr. Darnay? The worst. It's the wisest thing to expect and the likeliest, but I think their withdrawing is in your favor. Loitering on the way out of the court is not being allowed. Jerry heard no more, but left them. So like each other in features, so unlike each other in manner, standing side by side, both reflected in the glass above them. An hour and a half limped heavily away, and the thief and rascal crowded passages below, even though assisted off with mutton pies and ale. The hoarse messenger, uncomfortably seated on a form after taking that reflection, had dropped into a doze, when a loud murmur and a rapid tide of people setting up the stairs led to the court carried him along with them. Jerry, Jerry, Mr. Lorry was already calling on the door when he got there. Here, sir. It's a fight to get back again. Here I am, sir. Mr. Lorry handed him a paper through the throng. Quick, have you got it? Yes, sir. Hastily written on the paper was the word, acquitted. Ah. If you had sent the message recalled to life again, muttered Jerry as he turned. I should have known what you meant this time. He had no opportunity of saying, or so much as thinking anything else until he was clear of the Old Bailey, for the crowd came pouring out with a vehemence that nearly took him off his legs, and a loud buzz swept into the street as the baffled blue flies were dispersing in search of other carrion. Ah, that's funny. So they're disappointed that he was acquitted. So the disappointment is the disappointment that he's just being acquitted. Oh, we have a camera blur for a second? Sorry. I'm not perfectly centered, which sometimes causes that. There we go. This should be good now. Huh. I like turns of chapters like that. Wait, there's a note for Blue Flies 38. Baffled not because they were perplexed, but they felt thwarted and disappointed, hence the title of this chapter. That's great. That was a good chapter. Yeah, no show for them. They're like looking for a good show. They're looking to put a man behind bars and get like something fun behind it, and they don't get that. I like that. That was a good chapter. All right. So let me get this straight. So Stryver and Carton are the defense, and Carton just has a crazy resemblance to Darnay. Darnay or Darnay? Should we? I feel like Darnay is just an easier thing to say, so maybe we'll just stick with Darnay. Yeah, no dismembering. That's such a bummer. That's true. They were talking about the gruesomeness with which he was going to die, and everyone was probably looking forward to that. Honestly, it's like a good social critique of that. Social critique of public like mutilation. What they would do to Darnay. Some messed up people hoping that's going to happen. But I guess times don't change. We're all kind of like, this is the same. Wild. Sorry, one sec. Just got to check something. And then we'll start next. We're going to do 2 more chapters. Chapter 4, the congratulatory. Alrighty. Here we go. Chapter 4. Congratulatory. The next 2 chapters are pretty short. Actually, congratulatory is average. Chapter 5 is short, though. Got about 10 more pages to read. Yeah, justice is so boring. I feel like that's one of the biggest points of this novel, too. The idea of justice being boring. I'm going to write that. Justice is boring. All right, chapter 4. I'll take one more sip of water, and then we'll go. Yeah, their whole day is gone. They spent their whole day there looking for a guy to get dismembered, and now they can't see it. Which is interesting because I think maybe this is gonna point to the fact that people are lined up waiting for the guillotine. Like people like hunger and thirst after that kind of stuff. Chapter 4, congratulatory. From the dimly lighted passages of the court, the last sediment of the human stew that had been boiling there all day was straining off when Dr. Manette. I forgot he was a doctor. Did we know that? Lucy Manette, his daughter, Mr. Lorry, the solicitor for the defense, and its counsel, Mr. Stryver, stood gathered round Mr. Charles Darnay, just released, congratulating him on his escape from death. It would have been difficult by a far brighter light to recognize in Dr. Manette the intellectual of face and upright of bearing, the shoemaker of the garret in Paris. Yet no one could have looked at him twice without looking again, even though the opportunity of observation had not extended to the mournful cadence of his low, grave voice, and to the abstraction that overclouded him fitfully, without any apparent reason. While the external cause, and that a reference to his long lingering agony would always, as on the trial, evoke this condition from the depths of his soul. It was also in its nature to arise of itself, and to draw a gloom over him, as incomprehensible to those unacquainted with the story as if they had seen the shadow of the actual Bastille thrown upon him by a summer sun, when the substance was 300 miles away. Only his daughter had the power of charming this black brooding from his mind. She was the golden thread that united him to a past beyond his misery, and to a present beyond his misery. And the sound of her voice, and the light of her face, the touch of her hand, had a strong, beneficial influence with him almost always. Not absolutely always, for she could recall some occasions on which her power had failed, but they were few and slight, and she believed them over. Ominous. He might fall back into this. Mr. Darnay had kissed her hand fervently and gratefully, and had turned to Mr. Stryver, whom he warmly thanked. Mr. Stryver, a man of little more than 30, but looking 20 years older than he was, stout, loud, red, and bluff, and free from any drawback of delicacy, had a pushing way of shouldering himself morally and physically into companies and conversations that argued well for his shouldering his way up in life. He still had his wig and gown on, and he said, scoring himself at his late client to the degree that he squeezed the innocent Mr. Lorry clean out of the group, "I am glad to have brought you off with honor, Mr. Darnay. It was an infamous prosecution, grossly infamous, but not the not the less likely to succeed on that account. You have laid me under an obligation to your life, to you for life in two senses, said his late client, taking his hand. I have done my best for you, Mr. Darnay, and my best is as good as another man's, I believe. It clearly being incumbent on some to say, much better, Mr. Lorry said it, perhaps not quite disinterestedly, but with the interested object of squeezing himself back again. You think so? Said Mr. Stryver. Well, you have been present all today, and you ought to know. You are a man of business, too. And as such, quoth Mr. Lorry, whom the counsel learned in the law had now shouldered back to the group, just as he had previously shouldered him out of it. As such, I will appeal to Dr. Manette to break up this conference and order us all to our homes. Miss Lucy looks ill. Mr. Darnay has had a terrible day. We are worn out. Speak for yourself, Mr. Lorry, said Stryver. I have a night's work to do yet. Speak for yourself. I speak for myself, answered Mr. Lorry, and for you, Mr. Darnay, and for Miss Lucy. And Miss Lucy, do you not think I may speak for us all? He asked her the question pointedly, and with a glance at her father. His face had become frozen, as it were, in a very curious look at Darnay, an intent look, deepening into a frown of dislike and distrust, not even unmixed with fear. With this strange expression on him, his thoughts had wandered away. Is Darnay responsible for putting him in prison or something? Hey, shh. That's weird. So all of a sudden he looks at Darnay and kind of goes quiet and is a little distrusting of him. Weird. Why? My father, said Lucy, softly laying her hand on his. He slowly shook the shadow off and turned to her. Shall we go home, my father? With a long breath he answered, yes. The friend of the acquitted prisoner had dispersed under the impression which he himself had originated, that he would not be released that night. The lights were nearly all extinguished in the passages, the iron gates were being closed with a jar and a rattle, and the dismal place was deserted until tomorrow morning's interest of gallows, pillory, whipping posts, and branding iron should re-people into it. Walking between her father and Mr. Darnay, Lucy Manette passed into the open air. A hackney coach was called, and the father and daughter departed in it. Mr. Stryver had left them in the passages to shoulder his way back to the robing room. Another person, who had not joined the group or interchanged a word with any of them, but who had been leaning against the wall there where its shadow was darkest, had silently strolled out after the rest, and had looked on the coach until it drove away. He was now stepped up to where Mr. Lorry and Mr. Darnay stood upon the pavement. Hey, Neo. Neo's coming to hang out while we read. So, Mr. Lorry, men of business may speak to Mr. Darnay now. Nobody has made any acknowledgment of Mr. Carton's part in the day's proceeding. Nobody had known of it. He was unrobed, and was none the better for it in appearance. If you knew what a conflict goes on in the business mind, when the business mind is divided between good-natured impulse and business appearances, you would be amused, Mr. Darnay. Mr. Lorry reddened and said warmly, You have mentioned that before, sir. We men of business who serve a house are not our own masters. We have to think of the house more than ourselves. I know, rejoined Mr. Carton carelessly. Don't be nettled, Mr. Lorry. You are as good as another, I have no doubt. Better, I dare say. And indeed, sir, pursued Mr. Lorry, not minding him, I really don't know what you have to do with the matter. If you'll excuse me, as very much your elder for saying so, I really don't know what it is your business. I really don't know that it is your business. Business, bless you, I have no business, said Mr. Carton. It's a pity you have not, sir. I think so too. If you had, pursued Mr. Lorry, perhaps you would attend to it. Lord love you, no, I shouldn't, said Mr. Carton. Well, sir, cried Mr. Lorry, thoroughly heated by his indifference, business is a very good thing, and a very respectable thing. And, sir, if business imposes its restraints and its silences and impediments, Mr. Darnay, as a young gentleman of generosity, knows how to make allowances for that circumstance. Mr. Darnay, good night. God bless you, sir. I hope you have been this day preserved for a prosperous and happy life. Chair there. Chair there. Mr. Lorry calls, of course, for a sedan chair. Oh, okay, interesting. He's getting this in his sedan. Perhaps a little angry with himself as well as with the barrister, Mr. Lorry bustled into the chair and was carried off to Tellson's. Carton, who smelt of port wine and did not appear to be quite sober, laughed then and turned to Darnay. So, why did they not like each other? Did I miss that? Does Carton just like not care? And he's like, oh, business, that's the most important thing. Hey, Neo. What's up, buddy? Got a little dog under my desk right now. That's weird. So he's showing up to court drunk. Or I guess he's smelling a port wine. That doesn't necessarily mean he's drunk, but I guess it kind of does. This is a strange chance that throws you and me together. This must be a strange night to you, standing alone here with your counterpart on these street stones. I hardly seem yet, returned Charles Darnay, to belong to this world again. I don't wonder at it. It is not long since you were pretty far advanced on your way to another. You speak faintly. Carton was mocking Lorry for caring more about business than being friendly and kind. Oh, I kind of like Carton. I don't wonder at it. It is so long since you were pretty. You speak faintly. I begin to think I am faint. Then why the devil don't you dine? I dine myself, while those numbskulls were deliberating which world you would belong to, this or some other. Let me show you the nearest tavern to dine well at. Drawing his arm through his own, he took him down Ludgate Hill to Fleet Street, and so up a covered way into a tavern. They were shown into a little room where Charles Darnay was soon recruiting his strength with a good plain dinner and a good wine, while Carton sat opposite him at the same table with his separate bottle of port before him and his fully half-insolent manner upon him. Do you feel yet that you belong to this terrestrial scheme again, Mr. Darnay? I am frightfully confused regarding time and place, but I am so far mended as to feel that. It must be an immense satisfaction. He said it bitterly, and filled up his glass again, which was a large one. As to me, the greatest desire I have is to forget that I belong to it. It has no good in it for me, except wine like this, nor I for it. So we are not much alike in that particular. Indeed, I begin to think we are not much alike in any particular, you and I. Confused by the emotion of the day, and feeling his being there with this double of a coarse deportment to be like a dream, Charles Darnay was at a loss at how to answer. Finally, answered not at all. Now your dinner is done, Carton presently said. Why don't you call a health, Mr. Darnay? Why don't you give your toast? What, a health? What health? What toast? Why, it's on the tip of your tongue. It ought to be. It must be. I'll swear it's there. Miss Manette then. Miss Manette then. Looking his companion full in the face while he drank the toast, Carton flung his glass over his shoulder against the wall, where it shivered to pieces, then rang the bell and ordered another. Oh, so he's just a drunk. That's a fair young lady to hand to a coach in the dark, Mr. Darnay, he said, filling his new goblet. A slight frown and a laconic yes were the answer. That's a fair young lady to be pitied by and wept for. How does it feel? Is it worth being tried for one's life? To be the object of such sympathy and compassion, Mr. Darnay? All right. Yeah, exactly. Neo's like, what the heck is going on here? Again, Darnay answered not a word. She was mightily pleased to have your message when I gave it to her. Not that she showed she was pleased, but I suppose she was. The illusion served as a timely reminder to Darnay that this disagreeable companion had, of his own free will, assisted him in the strait of the day. He turned the dialogue to that point and thanked him for it. I neither want any thanks nor any merit, was the careless rejoinder. It was nothing to do, in the first place, and I don't know why I did it in the second. Mr. Darnay, let me ask you a question. Willingly, a small return for your good offices. Do you think I particularly like you? Mr. Carton, returned the other, oddly disconcerted. I have not asked myself the question. But ask yourself the question now. You have acted as if you do, but I don't think you do. I don't think I do, said Carton. I begin to have a very good opinion of your understanding. Nevertheless, pursued Darnay, rising to ring the bell, there is nothing in that, I hope, to prevent my calling the reckoning and our parting without ill blood on either side. Carton rejoining, nothing in life, Darnay rang. Do you call the whole reckoning? Said Carton, on his answering in the affirmative. Then bring me another pint of the same wine, sure, and come wake me at 10. The bill being paid, Charles Darnay rose and wished him good night, without returning the wish. Carton rose too, with something of a threat and defiance in his manner, and said, a last word, Mr. Darnay. You think I am drunk. I think you have been drinking, Mr. Carton. Think? You know I have been drinking. Since I must say so, I know it. Then you shall likewise know why. I am a disappointed drudge, sir. I care for no man on earth, and no man on earth cares for me. Much to be regretted. You might have used your talents better. Maybe so, Mr. Darnay. Maybe not. Don't let your sober face elate you, however. We don't know what it may come to. Good night. When he was left alone, this strange being took up a candle, went to a glass that hung against the wall, and surveyed himself minutely in it. Do you particularly like the man? He muttered, at his own image. Why should you particularly like a man who resembles you? There is nothing in you to like. You know that. Ah, confound you. What a change you have made in yourself. A good reason for taking to a man, that he shows you what you have fallen away from and what you might have been. Change places with him, and you would have been looked at by those blue eyes as he was, and commiserated by that agitated face as he was. Come on, and have it out in plain words. You hate the fellow. Interesting. He resorted to his pint of wine for consolation, drank it all in a few minutes, and fell asleep on his arms, with his hair straggling over the table, and a long winding sheet and the candle drippings down upon him. A long winding sheet. A mass of solidified drippings of grease clinging to the side of a candle, and regarded in popular suggestions as an omen of death or calamity. Ah. That's an interesting paragraph right here. That he wishes you could change places with him. All right, let's do one more chapter. The short one. All right, chapter 5. Let me get one more sip of water, and then we'll commence. Chapter 5, The Jackal. Those were drinking days, and most men drank hard. So very great is the improvement time had brought in about such habits, that a moderate statement of the quantity of wine and punch which one man would swallow in the course of a night, without any detriment to his reputation as a perfect gentleman, would seem, in these days, a ridiculous exaggeration. The learned profession of the law was certainly not behind any other learned profession in its Buchananian propensities. Neither was Mr. Stryver already fast shouldering his way to a large lucrative practice behind his compeers in this particular, any more than the drier parts of the legal race. A favourite at the Old Bailey, and eke at the Sessions, Mr. Stryver had begun cautiously to hew away the lower staves of the ladder which he mounted. Sessions and Old Bailey had now to summon their favourite, especially to the longing arms, and shouldering itself toward the visage of the Lord Chief Justice in the Court of King's bench, the florid countenance of Mr. Stryver might be daily seen, bursting out of its bedwigs, like a great sunflower pushing its way at the sun from among a rank garden full of flaring companions. It had once been noted at the bar that while Mr. Stryver was a glib man, and an unscrupulous and unready and a bold, he had not that faculty of extracting the essence from a heap of statements, which is among the most striking, the necessary of the advocate's accomplishments. But a remarkable improvement came upon him as to this. The more business he got, the greater his power seemed to grow of getting at its pith and marrow. And however late at night he sat carousing with Sidney Carton, he always had his points at his fingers' end in the morning. Sidney Carton, idlest and most unpromising of men, was Stryver's great ally. What the two drank together between Hilary Term and Michaelmas might have floated a king's ship. Stryver never had a case in hand anywhere, but Carton was there, with his hand in his pocket, staring at the ceiling of the court. They went the same circuit, and even there they prolonged their usual orgies late into the night, and Carton was rumored to be seen at broad day going home unstealthily and unsteadily to his lodgings like a dissipated cat. At last it began to get about. Among such were interested in the matter that although Sidney Carton would never be a lion, he was an amazingly good jackal, and that he rendered suit and service to Stryver in that human capacity. 10 o'clock, sir, said the man at the tavern, whom he had charged to wake him. 10 o'clock, sir. What's the matter? 10 o'clock, sir. What do you mean, 10 o'clock at night? Yes, sir. Your honor have told me to call you. Oh, I remember very well, very well. After a few dull efforts to get to sleep again, the man dexterously combated by stirring the fire continuously for 5 minutes, he got up, tossed on his hat, and walked out. He turned into the temple, and having revived himself by twice pacing the pavements of the King Bench Walk and paper buildings, turned to the Stryver chambers. The Stryver clerk, who never assisted at these conferences, had gone home, and the Stryver principal opened the door. He had his slippers on, and a loose bedgown, and his throat was bare for his greater ease. He had that rather wild, strange, seared mark about the eyes, which may be observed in all free livers of his class, and a class from the portrait of Jeffreys downward. Jeffreys. 62. Wait, what? No, this is 42, sorry. An allusion to the painting of Judge Jeffreys, which the National Portrait Gallery acquired just a year before these words were written. Interesting. That's kind of cool. Which can be traced under various disguises of art through the portraits of every drinking age. You're a little late, Memory, said Shriver. You're a little late, Memory? Lots of footnotes here. Hey! Hey! In 1855, Dickens had jotted down the curious name Memory Carton as a possible title for the novel he would wait years to begin to write. Memory Carton, interesting. Hey! Hey, come here. Relax. Hey, chill out. It's just other dogs in the neighborhood. You've heard them before. Yeah. Yo. You just gotta chill out. You just gotta chill out. About the usual time, it may be a quarter of an hour late, they went into a dingy room lined with books and littered with papers, where there was a blazing fire. A kettle steamed upon the hob, and in the midst of the wreck of papers a table shone with plenty of wine upon it, and brandy and rum, and sugar and lemons. You have had your bottle, I perceive, Sidney. 2 tonight, I think. I have been dining with the day's client, or seen him dine. It's all one. That was a rare point, Sidney, that you brought to bear upon the identification. How did you come by it? What did it strike you? I thought he was a rather handsome fellow, and I thought I should have been much the same sort of fellow if I had any luck. Mr. Shriver laughed till he shook his precocious paunch. You and your luck, Sidney. Get to work, get to work. Sullenly enough, the Jackal loosened his dress, went into an adjoining room, and came back with a large jug of cold water, a basin, and a towel or two. Steeping the towel in the water and partially wringing them out, he folded them on his head in a manner hideous to behold, sat down at the table, and said, Now I am ready. Not much boiling down to be done tonight, Memory, said Mr. Shriver gaily as he looked among his papers. How much? Only 2 sets of them. Give me the worst first. There they are, Sidney. Fire away. The Lion then composed himself on his back on the sofa on one side of the drinking table, while the Jackal sat at his own paper-bestrewn table proper. On the other side of it, with the bottles and glasses ready to his hand, both resorted to the drinking table without stint, but each in a different way. The Lion, for the most part, reclining with his hands in his waistband, looking at the fire, or occasionally flirting with some lighter document. The Jackal, with knitted brows and intent face, so deep in his task that his eyes did not follow even the hand he stretched out for his glass, which he often groped about for 1 minute or more before it found the glass for his lips. 2 or 3 times the matter in hand became so knotty that the Jackal found it imperative on him to get up and steep his towels anew. From these pilgrimages to the jug and basin he returned with such eccentricities of damp headgear as no words can describe, which were made more ludicrous by his anxious gravity. At length the Jackal had got together a compact repast for the Lion, and proceeded to offer it to him. The Lion took it with care and caution, made his selections from it, and his remarks upon it, and the Jackal assisted both. When the repast was fully discussed, the Lion put his hands in his waistband again, and lay down to meditate. The Jackal then invigorated himself with a bumper for his throttle, and a fresh application to his head, and applied himself to the collection of a second meal. This was administered to the Lion in the same manner, and was not disposed of until the clock struck 3 a.m. And now we have done, Sidney. Fill a bumper of punch, said Mr. Shriver. Hey, Wes. The Jackal removed the towels from his head, which had been streaming again, shook himself, yawned, shivered, and compiled. You were very sound, Sidney, in the matter of those crown witnesses today, every question told. I always am sound, am I not? I don't gainsay it. What has roughened your temper? Put some punch into it and smooth it again. With a depreciatory grunt, the jackal again complied. The old Sidney Carton of old Shrewsbury School, said Stryver, nodding his head over him as he reviewed him in the present and the past. The old seesaw Sidney, up one minute and down the next, now in spirits and now in despondency. Ah, returned the other, sighing. Yes, the same Sidney with the same luck. Even then I did exercises for the other boys, and seldom did my own. And why not? God knows. It was my way, I suppose. He sat with his hands in his pockets and his legs stretched out before him, looking at the fire. Carton, said his friend, squaring himself at him with a bullying air, as if the fire grate had been the furnace in which sustained endeavour was forged, and the one delicate thing to be done for the old Sidney Carton of old Shrewsbury School was to shoulder him into it. Your way is, and always was, a lame way. You summon no energy and purpose. Look at me. Oh, botheration, returned Sidney, with a lighter and more good-humoured laugh. Don't you be moral. How have I done what I have done, said Stryver. How do I do what I do? Partly through paying me to help you, I suppose. But it's not worth your while to apostrophize me, or the air about it. What you want to do, you do. You were always in the front rank, and I always behind. I had to get in the front rank. I was not born there, was I? It was not present at the ceremony, but my opinion is you were, said Carton. At this he laughed again, and they both laughed. Before Shrewsbury and at Shrewsbury, and ever since Shrewsbury, pursued Carton, you have fallen into your rank. Hey, Neo. What's up, buddy? I know. You're so cute. What's up, bud? Even when you were fellow students in the student quarter of Paris, picking up French law, and other French crumbs that we didn't get much good of, you were always somewhere, and I was always nowhere. And whose fault was that? Upon my soul, I am not sure it was yours. You were always driving and riving and shouldering and pressing to that restless degree that I had no chance for my life but in rust and repose. It's a gloomy thing, however, to talk about one's own past with the day breaking. Turn me in some other direction before I go. Well then, pledge to me to the pretty witness, said Stryver, holding up his glass. You turned in a pleasant direction. Apparently not, for he became gloomy again. Pretty witness, he muttered, looking down into his glass. I have had enough of witnesses today and tonight. Who is your pretty witness? The picturesque doctor's daughter, Miss Manette. She pretty? Is she not? No. Why, man alive, she was the admiration of the whole court. Rot the admiration of the whole court. Who made the old Bailey a judge of beauty? She was a golden-haired doll. Do you know, Sidney, said Mr. Stryver, looking at him with his sharp eyes, and slowly drawing his hand across his florid face, do you know, I rather thought, at this time, that you sympathized with the golden-haired doll, and were quick to see what happened to the golden-haired doll. Quick to see what happened. If a girl, doll or no, swoons within a yard or two of a man's nose, he can see it without a perspective glass. I pledge you, but I deny the beauty, and now I'll have no more. And now I'll have no more drink. I'll get to bed. When his host followed him out of the staircase with a candle to light him down the stairs, the day was coldly looking in through its grimy windows. When he got out of the house, the air was cold and sad, and the dull sky overcast, and the river dark and dim, and the whole scene like a lifeless desert. The wreaths of dust were spinning around and round before the morning blast, as if the desert sand had risen far away, and its first spray of its evidence had begun to overwhelm the city. Waste forces within him, and a desert all around him. This man stood still on his way across the silent terrace, and saw for a moment, lying in the wilderness before him, a mirage of honorable ambition, self-denial, and perseverance. In the fair city of this vision, there were airy galleries from which the love and graces looked upon him, gardens in which the fruit of life hung ripening, waters of hope that sparkled in his sight. A moment, and it was gone. Climbing to a higher chamber in the walls of the houses, He threw himself down on his clothes and on a neglected bed, and its pillow was wet with wasted tears. Sadly, the sun rose, and it rose upon no sadder sight than the man of good abilities and good emotions, incapable of their directed exercises, incapable of his own help and his own happiness, sensible of the blight on him, and resigning himself to let it eat him away. Funky, weird. What a sad life. So he's just like kind of like bitter and like bored and just wants to get drunk. Hello, Neo. You're just so cute. Hi, buddy. Oh, I know. Hi. Yeah, totally lying about whether she's pretty or not. He definitely thought that she was pretty. Yeah, it's interesting too because he really is smart. He's like a lawyer. He's a good lawyer, but he's just grumpy. I mean, all of us can be grumpy at sometimes, but he's like excessively grumpy, you know? He's like giving up. He's like, yeah. Sometimes like really, really brilliant people are like that. I don't think he's brilliant, but I think he's like good at what he does. Hi, Neo. Yeah, he's a sour grape. That's a good word for it. I'm enjoying it. It's a good book. Good book so far. I'm curious what's going to happen, though. I'm curious why everyone's giving each other weird looks. That's the thing that I'm most curious about. Why did Dr. Manette recognize what's his name? Darny. Or think that he recognized him. That's weird. But we'll figure it out. We'll see as we go. I'll make some quick videos about this. Publish them in the next week or so. But lots of questions that I have about it. Some strange stuff going on, but we'll see. All right, guys, I'm going to go. I got 2 dogs just looking at me. I'm going to go take them out for a quick walk or something. Or at least go to the bathroom. Yeah. You got to take a nap. So I'll see you guys in the next one. I don't know when the next one's going to be. Sometime early next week. We'll see. Maybe Monday or Tuesday or something like that. But I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for joining on this one. This was fun. I love these. These are great. And see you later.